The key wouldn't turn in the lock. I tried again, jiggling it slightly as I'd done thousands of times before, but something was different. That's when I noticed the lock itself had changed, a gleaming new brass fixture where my familiar old silver one should have been. "It's no use trying, Emma. Those keys don't work anymore." Victoria's voice came through the window, dripping with satisfaction. My stepmom stood there, arms crossed, watching me with that smug smile I'd grown to hate over the last 5 years. "My name is Emma Shen, and at 28, I was being locked out of my own home. The house my mother had left me when she passed away 10 years ago. The house I'd grown up in, where every corner held memories of her." "What did you do?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "What I should have done years ago," Victoria replied, adjusting her designer blouse. "This house belongs to Marcus now. Your father made sure of that before he passed." Marcus, her 19-year-old son who'd never worked a day in his life, who'd moved in 3 years ago when Victoria married my father and immediately started treating my childhood home like his personal party venue. "That's impossible," I said, gripping my briefcase tighter. "Mom left this house to me. It's in her will." Victoria's laugh was sharp, cutting. "Oh honey, your father changed all that. He amended the deed last month. Marcus is the legal owner now." She held up a document, waving it tauntingly behind the glass. "So pack up whatever's still in your room, if Marcus decides to keep any of it, and find somewhere else to live." I stood there, rain starting to drip down my neck, remembering the conversation I'd had with my father just 2 months ago. He'd been in the hospital, cancer eating away at him, when he grabbed my hand and made me promise to protect what my mother had left for me. "Don't let them take it, Emma," he'd whispered. "I've made sure they can't." Now, watching Victoria's triumphant face through the window, I wondered if she'd somehow manipulated him in his final days, taken advantage of his weakened state to change documents she had no right to touch. But there was something she didn't know. The day after that conversation with my father, I'd gone straight to Mr. Harrison, our family lawyer for the past 20 years. Dad had already been there, had already set everything in motion. "Give me a minute," I told Victoria, pulling out my phone. Her smile faltered slightly as I dialed. "Mr. Harrison, it's Emma. Could you come to the house? It seems Victoria's changed the locks." I paused, listening. "Yes, she's claiming Dad left everything to Marcus." Another pause. "Perfect. See you in 15 minutes. Victoria's face had lost some of its confidence. "Calling a lawyer won't change anything," she said, but her voice wavered. "Marcus is the legal owner now." I sat down on the front steps, despite the rain, and opened my laptop. "Actually, Victoria, why don't you call Marcus? He should be here for this. And maybe gather up those documents you were so proudly waving around. We'll need to compare them with the ones Mr. Harrison is bringing." For the first time since my father's funeral last month, I felt a sense of calm. Dad had warned me this might happen, had prepared for Victoria's greed. The house, my mother's last gift to me, wasn't just protected by one will. It was protected by a trust my father had secretly established before Victoria could sink her claws into our family's legacy. Victoria disappeared from the window, and I could hear her frantically making phone calls. Soon this would all be over, but not in the way she expected. Sometimes I thought the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's watching someone's carefully laid plans crumble right in front of them. Mr. Harrison's car pulled up just as Marcus arrived, looking confused and slightly hungover. Perfect timing for what was about to unfold. Mr. Harrison emerged from his car, briefcase in hand, looking exactly as he had for the past 20 years, precise, professional, and slightly intimidating. Victoria opened the front door, her earlier confidence replaced by nervous energy. "Come in, all of you," she said, trying to maintain control of the situation. "Let's discuss this civilly." I noticed she'd hastily arranged papers on the dining room table, the same table where Mom used to help me with my homework, where Dad and I had our last dinner together before he went into the hospital. Marcus sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone, barely interested in the drama unfolding around him. "Mom, why am I here?" "I was supposed to meet the guys for lunch." "Because, sweetheart," Victoria said, her voice honeyed, "we need to explain to Emma that this is your house now. Your father wanted you to have it." Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, setting his briefcase on the table. "Actually, Mrs. Chen, that's not quite accurate." "I have the documents right here," Victoria interrupted, pushing forward a folder. "Robert signed everything over to Marcus last month. It's all legal." I watched as Mr. Harrison methodically opened his briefcase, extracting a thick envelope sealed with the firm's logo. Yes, you have documents from last month, but I have documents from 6 months ago, when Mr. Chen was of sound mind and fully aware of his actions. Victoria's face paled slightly. What are you talking about? Dad knew what you were planning, I said quietly. He knew you'd try something like this once he was gone. Mr. Harrison laid out 3 documents. This is the original deed to the house, left to Emma by her mother. This is the trust agreement Robert Chen established 6 months ago, placing the house in an irrevocable trust with Emma as the sole beneficiary. And this, he paused, sliding the final document forward, is a letter from Robert explaining his reasons for these arrangements. Victoria snatched up the letter, her hands shaking as she read. I knew what it said. Dad had shown me a copy. He detailed every manipulation he'd witnessed, every attempt Victoria had made to push me out of my own home, every conversation he'd overheard about her plans for after he was gone. This is ridiculous, she sputtered. Robert changed his mind. He wanted Marcus to have the house. I have proof. Any documents signed after the trust was established are invalid, Mr. Harrison explained calmly. The house was no longer Robert's to give away. It was legally protected in Emma's name. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. Wait, so I don't get the house? Mom, you said it was a done deal. You said we could sell it and use the money for my startup idea. I felt a surge of anger. They'd already been planning to sell my home, to erase every memory of my mother that lived within these walls. The only thing that's done, I said, standing up, is your control over this property. I want the new keys, Victoria, now. She stared at me, hatred burning in her eyes. You planned this. You and Robert, you plotted behind my back. No, Victoria, we protected what was rightfully mine, what Mom wanted me to have. The only one plotting here was you. Mr. Harrison began gathering the documents. I'll need those keys, Mrs. Chen, also any other copies you may have made. Otherwise, we'll need to involve the authorities regarding unauthorized access to private property. Victoria's face contorted with rage as she threw the keys on the table. This isn't over, Emma. You have no idea what you're doing. I picked up the keys, feeling their weight in my hand. Actually, I do. I'm protecting my mother's legacy. And Victoria? I met her gaze steadily. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave, both of you. Marcus jumped up. You can't kick us out. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, I replied. But I'm sure Victoria has a backup plan. She always does, doesn't she? As they stormed upstairs to pack, Mr. Harrison touched my arm gently. Your father would be proud, Emma. He wanted to make sure you'd be okay. I nodded, feeling tears threaten to fall. He knew. He knew all along what she was planning, didn't he? Yes, Mr. Harrison confirmed. That's why we made sure everything was legally airtight. She can't touch this house or anything else your parents left you. I walked to the window, watching the rain that had started to fall again. Somewhere, I hoped both Mom and Dad were watching, knowing their daughter had finally stood up for herself and the home they'd worked so hard to provide. Victoria and Marcus's hour was ticking away, and soon, this house would be mine again, truly mine, without their shadow hanging over it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning. It's winning with the knowledge that justice has been served exactly as it should be. The next few hours were a chaos of slammed doors and angry muttering as Victoria and Marcus packed their belongings. I sat at the kitchen counter, sipping the tea my mother used to make, watching as they carried designer bags and expensive electronics past me. You'll regret this, Victoria hissed, struggling with a heavy suitcase. The neighbors all know what you've done, kicking out your own family. I stirred my tea calmly. My family? No, Victoria. My family built this house. My mother planted those roses you tried to dig up last spring. My father worked overtime for 20 years to pay off the mortgage. You're just someone who tried to steal what wasn't yours. Marcus stormed through with his gaming console, glaring at me. My dad bought me this house, he promised. Your dad promised you something that wasn't his to give, I replied. Maybe that's a lesson you needed to learn. Once they'd loaded everything into their luxury SUV, Victoria made one last attempt. Standing in the doorway, she pulled out her phone. I've already called Robert's sisters. They're disgusted by your behavior. The entire family will hear about this. I walked to the door, ready to close it. You mean the aunts who watched you manipulate Dad while he was dying? Who tried to warn him about you years ago? I'm sure they'll be fascinated by your version of events. The door clicked shut on her outraged face, and for the first time in years, I was alone in my childhood home. The silence felt like a blessing. Over the next few days, the true extent of Victoria's plans came to light. Mr. Harrison discovered she'd already listed the house with a real estate agent, planning to close the sale next month. She contacted contractors about renovations, scheduled movers, even started canceling my utilities. She really thought she had it all figured out. Grace, my best friend, said as she helped me change the locks again. Can you imagine if your dad hadn't protected you? I ran my hand along the doorframe where Mom had marked my height every year until she passed. Dad knew. He always saw through her, even at the end. The family drama Victoria promised did materialize, but not in the way she expected. Dad's sisters, far from being disgusted, were relieved. They reached out with stories of Victoria's attempts to manipulate other family assets, of promises she'd made to various relatives about property and heirlooms that weren't hers to give. She tried to convince your Uncle Robert that your father wanted Marcus to have the lake cabin too, Aunt Sarah revealed during a visit. Lucky for us, your father warned everyone what she was really like. A week after Victoria and Marcus left, I found a box in the attic that made everything even clearer. It contained letters my father had written over the past year, documenting every conversation, every scheme, every manipulation he'd witnessed. He'd known he was dying and had methodically built a case to protect me. My dearest Emma, his final letter read, by the time you read this, Victoria will have shown her true colors. I'm sorry I brought her into our lives, but I promise I haven't left you unprotected. This house, your mother's legacy, is yours. Don't let anyone tell you differently. The community Victoria thought would shun me rallied instead. Mrs. Peterson next door brought over photos she'd taken of Victoria meeting with contractors, discussing renovations before Dad had even passed. The local hardware store owner told me how she tried to order new fixtures using my father's credit card while he was in the hospital. Each revelation confirmed what Dad had known, that Victoria had never seen this house as a home, only as an asset to exploit. But she'd underestimated both my father's foresight and my determination to protect what my parents had built. 3 months later, I sat in the garden my mother had loved, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors she used to describe in bedtime stories. The roses she planted were blooming again, their scent filling the evening air. Inside, the house felt like home again, cleansed of Victoria's presence and filled with memories she couldn't taint. Mr. Harrison had helped me establish my own trust, ensuring the house would always be protected. Your parents would be proud, he said when we finalized the paperwork. You've honored their legacy in the best way possible. I heard through family friends that Victoria and Marcus had moved to a small apartment across town. She tried to contest the trust, but Mr. Harrison's work was ironclad. Sometimes, karma has a way of setting things right. Looking at my childhood home, I felt at peace. This wasn't just about keeping a house. It was about preserving the love, memories, and legacy my parents had built. Victoria had tried to steal that from me, but in the end, she'd only succeeded in proving why it needed to be protected in the first place. Some people might call it revenge, but I prefer to think of it as justice, the kind that comes from standing your ground and fighting for what's rightfully yours.